Welcome everyone to the Agile Strategy Meetup. My name is Morten Elvang, and today we have an episode that I've really been looking forward to because I think, Tom, you are my oldest mentor, and you have been sort of witnessing my career, and I have been following you since I was a very young engineer, and we are still talking today, which make me proud and humble, and really looking forward to see how your thinking on strategy has been developing. And we will follow the normal format, which is about 30 minutes for Tom to present, and then after that, open up for debate. So Tom, please.
Okay, so welcome everybody, and this is the cover slide. If you want a copy of the slides, like right now, here's the QR, and I'll show that later, but they are available as we speak. So I'm going to start off by defining my terminology, and let's see, I should also start off by getting rid of a window here, but all right. Strategy, what is that? Now, as I just said to Marcelo, if you ask AI to give you 500 different definitions of strategy, you will get 500 different definitions. So you deserve to know what I think strategy is. Now, I'm going to do this slowly. Strategy is the means by which systems generate performance attributes, like all the qualities like security, and resource attributes like low costs and things like that, at the next higher level up. I'll show you a diagram where I show these levels in a moment. Now, I have two different ways of expressing the means, the strategies. One is a little bit unusual compared to the literature. That is, I suggest and I prefer to express the strategy not as a thing you do or implement, but as a set of intended attributes. In other words, which quality levels, which cost levels do we want? You can, of course, express a strategy as an idea of a thing you do. But the danger is, if that idea of the thing you want to do doesn't work very well, does not give the qualities you want, does not give the costs you want, then you ain't going to get what you want at the higher level. Is it perhaps less risky to express a strategy as what I'm coining a term, strategic attributes, or what you really want? Not as the new term again, strategic hypothesis, your hope or dream of what you need to do to get the qualities and costs. Because the problem is, if you express your strategy as somebody's idea, maybe a bad one, it could be a bad design. It won't give you the intended strategic attributes, but you may be locked into doing it, paying for it, and failing with it. So I'm hinting, with my humble opinion, is it less risky, that expressing strategies as a set of multiple critical performance, including all qualities, attributes, and cost attributes, and other constraints. In other words, what you want, what you really, really want, is a much smarter idea than the conventional idea of expressing a strategy as a what I call, to emphasize the fact that you don't know until you've done it, a strategy hypothesis. Okay, so I'm introducing some new ideas that I have not found in any of the literature, and I spent a lot of time going through the literature. uh, in preparation for this talk, and people don't think that thought at all, and I think they're on dangerous territory. Now, that's a strategy, the noun, the means. So then there is doing strategy, also known as the strategy process. And I'm going to introduce the idea for some of you. Maybe those who read my books will not be surprised. We have a thing called the EVO cycle, the evolutionary value optimization cycle. We'll see enlargements of that in future slides. But basically, it's an engine or motor for driving change, for driving improvement in the direction of our strategic objectives. And it works by, at some point, it outputs a strategy in either format, the thing you do or the attributes, doesn't much matter. And then if the strategy is too big, like a year's worth of work and investment, we will probably want to decompose it into smaller strategies, evolutionary steps, and manage them using this Evo cycle. And these will be like weekly steps or monthly steps, or if you're very extreme, like SpaceX and Tesla, they have daily steps. And what are these steps doing? They are incrementing the value. This is just one of many values, but they are incrementing the value in the direction of your goal, your longer term goal. And I'm going to talk, and I believe that we really need to manage our strategic work in small, controlled, measurable steps in the direction of the longer term goal. So I use the term strategy creation. The Evo cycle ring is the continuous strategy creation process. And here's my definition of strategy creation. I'll save time by not reading that. Now, one more thing. This Evo step has some interesting properties. One, it is fractal, definition coming up in next slide, if you don't know it. And the other is scale free. It's not that it scales up, but it scales up and it scales down in any which way. It isn't worried about how large or complex a system or how simple a system. It works at any scale. Those are two other interesting ideas. Here is the definition of fractal, okay? And here's the definition of scale-free, operates successfully at any scale. Here are some scales: the vision scale, the long-range plan, the medium-range plan, the annual plan, the monthly plan. And here is the Evo cycle operating at, the vision level, the long-range plan level, and so on into maybe the one-day level. The point is the same cycle of strategic work. Here's the word strategy in case you missed it, but all of this is in aid of those strategies. Okay, so this is symbolic for both fractal and the idea of operating at any scale. Now, to the idea I introduced earlier, that there are two ways of expressing a strategy: a thing you do, how you imagine you will get what you want. In other words, sometimes called a design idea, a strategy, an architecture, a solution, a means. It doesn't matter what you call it. It is what it is, and different cultures call it different things. So here's the idea of the conventional idea of the strategy. And here's also the conventional idea that's in almost all the literature, that there's some kind of a goal. That's usually the word people use. And the strategy is the thing that gives you the goal. So we agree on that structure, pretty well agreed. However, what I'm saying is that the strategic goal itself is perhaps a safer, smarter way of expressing the idea of our strategy. Our strategy is to get security to this level, okay? We have some people in the background that have one or more ideas of how to get there, but they could all be wrong. And we won't know until we've measured, we've got it. One thing for sure, we don't want to get a substandard strategy that gives us half of what we need and then get stuck with it because of a contract or investment. And plenty of failed projects have done exactly that. They get stuck in their strategy of building a huge IT system that does not give them the values they never bothered to state clearly. Okay, so here's another view. Here is a detailed level of maybe these sub-strategies or eval steps being done to drive the value upward. And as we drive the value upward, we contribute something to the next level up, next level of concern. And then achieving that, we drive the next level of concern. And finally, we get to maybe the top level of concern. Here are some specific ideas to help you understand these. For example, we give rewards for skilled designers, and we get design skill competence. That gives us product quality, hopefully, which gives us increased sales, which gives us increased profit, which gives increased share dividend, which gives share value growth. So this is a simple example of such a series of levels that I'm speaking about. Okay, so main idea is that strategy is really the achievement of these goals in practice. The thing we usually call the strategy is merely a perceived means, a hypothesis. We think we will get this level of security if we use this type of strategy A, but it could be wrong, and therefore this isn't really what you want. You want that, even if you have to dump that and get big strategy A2. Got it? Okay, so the first question that Morton asked me is, what is my view of strategy? And I'm putting in the word radical because I believe, compared to the literature, I have a radically different idea of how to do strategic planning. And of course, I believe it's better. I even have some tables in the slides here comparing it to other methods systematically, and it comes out better. So, and I can't argue with these artificial intelligence systems. They know more than you and I do. So here's my first radical idea. Strategy is not something you blah, blah, blah talk about. And a lot of the strategic literature is of that nature. Words, 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 sentences, 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 but no sign of engineering. Of course, you're all software engineers, right? Or are you coders calling yourselves software engineers? Or what? Anyway, here's a fairly dramatic statement. Strategy must, no ifs or buts, be engineered. In other words, sorry guys, but you're going to have to learn some engineering to do strategy properly. Now, there's a little double asterisk here, and it says, of course, this is only true for non-trivial systems, and we can characterize those as complex, large, and critical, like a national health system or an international air traffic control system or stuff like that. If your strategy is just what kind of cinema we're going to take the family to this evening, then you don't need engineering. Gut feel, intuition will work pretty well. Okay, so you got over it. In other words, I'm gonna talk about strategy engineering here in this talk. Strategy, that word, is management speak for what engineers call design. They call it a lot of other things like architecture and the engineering. But both of these terms, strategy and design, are a means to some ends. In other words, design to some requirements. Therefore, we can use design engineering methods if they are scale-free, fractal, and general. Now, turns out, very recently, I wrote a little book called The General Theory of Design Engineering. 181 pages. Free copy right there. This is for my academic friends. I'm entering the contest for having a general theory of design, but I decided I'm going to modify that to design engineering and leave other forms of like artistic design to other people to have a theory for. So I'm really about systems engineering methods. So I wrote a book about it. Now that means that if design and strategy are essentially the same thing, then we can use a textbook on design engineering to do strategy engineering. Now, point 3, answering question 1, strategies must deliver, oh, another little asterisk, detail. You can read it later. Strategies must deliver required stakeholder values within constraints. That's my formal definition of what strategies have to do. Required stakeholder values within constraints. That's a lot to swallow. If you want to know more about constraints, I recommend my free book guides. By the way, things in square brackets like this, you will find the free download link at the end of the slides in the references under guides. You want to go deep into constraints like you never did before, that's your book. Now, in preparation for this lecture, about 3 days ago, I decided to write a book called A General Theory of Strategy Engineering. And so I did it. It's already on ResearchGate, and you can have a free copy of it. Now, I have to admit, I cheated. I took my design engineering book and said, find and replace the word design to strategy. So that took me about an hour to make a 181-page book on a general theory of strategy engineering. And you will find it is very detailed, it is very deep, and it's very original, and it is based on my planning language, my competitive engineering book, and the EVO cycle. But take a look, okay? Wouldn't mind if some academic friends took a look at it and said, yeah, it's the best strategy theory we've ever seen, okay? Now, what about priorities, okay? Now, I believe that strategies as such, the old idea, the means, the architecture, they are mere tools. I also believe that agile is a mere efficiency tool. So they are secondary. They're not my first priority. What is the first priority? Actually, in a book by Clegg and Company on strategy, this sentiment was clearly there, reference other people, but that the main priority of strategy is to succeed in something. Okay, and I'll define success: reaching your planned requirements or objectives within your constraints. Here, by the way, a whole book on how to succeed for free if you're interested in succeeding as opposed to failing. Some of the strategy literature says 90 to 98% of all strategy efforts totally fail. So obviously we're not very good at success. Okay. So a strategy is only a means to get your competitive results. Reference to the competitive engineering book, big picture of that coming up in a moment. Okay. How to get the results, how to achieve the strategy attributes, we need to identify strategy hypothesis. I throw the word hypothesis in there to emphasize that it's not a done deal going to happen no matter how bad it is. It is a hypothesis that needs to be scientifically tested with measurable feedback to see if it gives what we thought it would. And if it doesn't, we have to get a better hypothesis, a new and different strategy. How do we get a strategy, a good or suitable strategy hypothesis? Well, we have to use a strategy engineering process, in my view, like the EVO cycle. And here's a reference to a whole book on EVO, free download, and a new book I also wrote recently called Strategy Ring, and the ring refers to the EVO cycle. Well, there's a whole book on that, a free strategy book. How often should we do a strategy engineering process? Well, continuously, frequently, and early. I hope I'm not loading you up with too many strange new ideas, but they're all well documented. Here's the second question I was asked. How can strategy planners, that's presumably you who are listening in here, master the topic? And I know I've got 9 minutes left, not 15, but such is life. And the simple answer is to you do the kind of continuous strategy engineering. Continuous means keep in that cycle. Now, number one, I believe you need, as I said earlier, I'm just saying in a different way, we need to totally focus on getting the business or organizational results as defined by value and resource requirements. Result focus. We need to focus, and this is a reflection of what I just said earlier, on getting results early. In my world of practice for decades, the first week of sitting down with a client results the next week in getting early measurable results. Plenty of case studies on that too. Okay? Even for large institutions like the US Department of Defense, we did it. Continuous, meaning for the life cycle of the system. Measured, meaning yes, with numbers and measurements and not just, nobody complained, must be good. And we need to have a stream of results. Notice plural stream, not singular stream, as in many people's flow methods. Okay. So we need to focus on stakeholder values within their stakeholder constraints. And number three, this is just to emphasize that change is every cycle, every week, all the time. And what is it? It's change of requirements as different stakeholders get different requirements, or we recognize different requirements that were there all the time. And then the moment you change the requirement, you need to change strategies to meet the improved or changed stakeholders. So this is my answer to the question, how can strategy planners master the topic? I tried to be simple. You want something more complex? Have a free copy of my competitive engineering book, which spells out in detail the processes, principles, definitions, templates, patterns, everything you ever wanted to know about continuous strategy engineering. Here, I'd like to identify some things. In my research for this talk, I bumped into my good old personal friend, Fred Brooks Jr., and it said he wrote a book called The Design of Design. I said, wow. I mean, I've got 3 autographed copies of the man's books, but I didn't even know he'd written this. It flew under the radar, maybe for some of you. I highly recommend it. I got myself a Kindle copy, and he's really good. He's deep. I think a lot of people are not very impressive, but Fred is always deep and impressive. Okay. Now, one of the 2 things that really impressed me is that he said that architecture is about harmony and balance. Well, not about maximizing profit or quality, about balance. Now, I just happen to have written a book about that called Optima. Here is your free copy if you'd like to go deeply into the idea of harmony between attributes and costs. So we start with, this is a stakeholder symbol. It's sort of a globe, isn't it? And I got the word harmony in the stakeholder world. Their stakeholders aren't battling and fighting each other and trying to assassinate each other anyway. And we have our EVO cycle, which could be a plan, do, study, act cycle or a Gilb-Bevel cycle, doesn't much matter. But one of the things it does, it analyzes, are we in disharmony? Are there some stakeholders that are not getting enough quality, or their costs are too high, or they're in conflict with other stakeholders? If yes, we need to identify what the problem is. We may need to increase the security value for a certain class of customer. The moment you increase the security value, you have to design something to get there, architect it, and prove that you really got it. And hopefully that leads to harmony. So I hope you like my little notion of the four key players: stakeholders, values, the adjustment process, and strategies, as illustrated here. I finished with 4 minutes to go. But you know what? Oh, by the way, here is, if you want to get the meetup talk with everything, take a photograph of that. Now, I have a lot of other slides I would love to go through, but I don't have time. I'm going to turn over to debate in 4 minutes. But I can't resist running through the slides in the last 4 minutes to sort of tease you with what I've got. Here's a slide where I asked ChatGPT what my method has compared to all the other methods. And I won't read it, but it says, what's new in Gilb's method and why is this significant? You might like to study that. The strategy ring book that I gave you a free copy of, here's a one-page summary. Here's even a one-line summary. I can be short and brief, even though I am loquacious and glib at times. But here's the short version. Here's the slightly longer version of the book on strategy. I love to state principles of this and that. So here are the 10 principles that summarize the strategy ring book. And I emphasize, one, we need to meet sets of values. That's something the most of the literature rarely talks about explicit. They talk about the goal or the vision, and very singular. And explicit statement of multiple goals simultaneously, let alone quantified, is not prevalent in the literature. And I'm trying to contribute that necessary logical idea to strategy planners. We took the best strategy method from somebody that some of my friends are working with, Robert L. Martin, and we asked Perplexity to tell us what kind of strategy dimensions were interesting. We got this list, and then to comment on Robert L. Martin's method compared to Tom Gilb's method, and that's interesting. By the way, this decomposing the strategy, the dimensions like this, is a thing I call technoscopes. They help you see complex systems like methods for doing strategy. And they are, of course, really a set of qualities. And I tried to simplify them down to only 6 here. What's wrong with strategic planning? Now, here are some problems. Here are some examples. And here are some solutions. There is something I call the logic of strategy, based on a deeper notion, designed logic. There's a paper you'll find in the references in the back. And the logic is, you can't do the strategies until you know the values. You can't do the values until you know the stakeholders. Okay, you can't decompose, prioritize, develop, or deliver, or measure, or learn from a strategy until you've begun with the stakeholders. There is a logic here, and you can't just jump in and start talking about strategies, which people do. Here is the Evo cycle in the large, just for fun, but I think it's and there's nothing quite like this in the literature, nowhere near. It hardly talks about cycles at all. It's just sort of, you have some visions and you find some strategies and then you do some detailed planning. It's amazing how poor the strategy literature is. Okay, here is Planguage in a nutshell. I know I'm at 30 minutes, so I'll wind this down. Here are 3 quantified values. I wanted to put some meat on the idea of what do I mean by strategy engineering, but here are 3 for some strategy planning. Here are 3 strategies, and here is an impact estimation table where we're looking at the impact of this strategy on this goal, 80% of the way to the goal, etc. So it's a simple introduction to Planguage on one page in a nutshell. I asked ChatGPT to compare my method to everybody else's famous people. I met Peter Drucker once, believe it or not. And here I ask it to be numeric on an impact estimation table. Haha, I won 97. And here's some more of that. Here's Grok recently comparing and doing it numerically. So I'm trying to help you, give you a framework for comparing any strategy methods with any others. And you don't have to compare my method, and you don't have to compare Herbert Simon's method if you don't want to. Winding completely down, I believe in the arts of listening, praising, suggesting, etc. And I believe these mesh with my engineering techniques. And I think it's kind of fun to have a good list of the arts, which are not engineering, but they support the engineering and they need to be learned. And some people have high skills here. So here are my engineering methods, but I certainly hope I'm better and better at empathy, explaining, curiosity, kindness, and all that stuff. More comparisons, more comparisons. Finally, 2 minutes over. No, not too bad. I asked Grok to tell me if there were any other general strategy engineering efforts, and I got this list. So, and I have begun to work my way through these things, but I haven't done all of them. But you can do the work and compare all these to my methods or your methods or anybody else's. I'm now done, only 2 minutes late, but we didn't start at exactly 5 o'clock, did we? So I actually used less than half an hour. We're
You're
now
forgiven.
open for debate.
Thank you, Tom. Really appreciate it.
I'll go back to something as a symbol of what I'm talking about. Let me do it this way. Okay, I'll leave that on.
So just before opening up for everyone, one question, and I know you were not necessarily planning to speak on it. From your perspective and what you have learned over the recent 1 year or two, what developments do you see in the area of strategy? Is there something new happening?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
How would you describe what you have seen, and where is the world taking us, if not you?
Right. Okay. This will surprise nobody when I say it. AI. So AI tools like Grok, ChatGPT, and our new Chinese friend, so I'm tempted to try out shortly, they help enormously in planning quickly, and they will make better plans than any human or any author of any strategy book I ever saw. And you can ask them things like, who are the stakeholders in this dimension? And you can ask for 20 stakeholders or 50 stakeholders. You can ask what values and constraints those stakeholders have. You can ask them to quantify those values, even if you're not very good at it. It is very good at quantifying in language for you. You can then ask for the top 10 critical strategies. You can then ask to do an impact estimation table of the like this. This was done by AI. This my language for doing values. Okay, and the table was built up, and so long story short, one individual or a team can use AI to do much more thorough, better quality work more quickly and go through more iterations. So the short answer is AI is a major new currently available tool for doing really good strategic planning work.
What's your observation on where AI cannot help? Is there any such area in the field of strategy?
Yeah, the worst thing about AI now is that all of the AI systems, they will do things like they'll find, say, one of my 100 books, and they will maybe get the introduction or table of contents, but they either will not read the whole book or cannot, for copyright reasons, try to read it. So the problem with AI systems right now is they're floating on the surface about when you ask questions about methods. In order to get some of the good results I've gotten here, uh, let's see, like these, for example, it says here, I fed 29 pages of a book. I tried to feed my whole book on strategy engineering into Grok, and it choked and it couldn't do it. So then I fed about a third of it in, and then it did this. But I had to feed it in, and I've tried to give Grok permission to go and get it in ResearchGate, and it basically says I can't at this age. So right now, long story short, AI learning is severely limited to superficial understanding of all research papers and books and things like that. Okay, and that's a big problem. We have to somehow legally enable them to learn everything that a human can go and find on the internet instantaneously for free. That's my short answer.
Thank you. Let's open it up. Questions, comments, anyone?
Wow, suddenly there are 39 people here. I thought there were only 8 last time I looked. Pretty good.
19 online at the moment.
19. Oh, I see. It says chat 39. That means 39 chat. Sorry, 19 participants. I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah. 19. Good. That's about exactly what we expected. I predicted 20. 40 in chat. Okay. And I can, of course, look at chat. And I haven't had a chance to look
I've been
through
looking,
it.
so there are no real questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I have one for you. So you mentioned that design is about balance and harmony.
Yes.
And earlier you emphasized that strategy is about success. Is there some competition between balance and harmony, which I would say is more like a sustainability aspiration than necessarily try to kill yourself by winning?
So I need to define terms here a little bit better. But harmony means the stakeholders are not in conflict knowingly or unknowingly, and harmony means there is no reason for them to fight because they are in harmony, or they think they are. So that's what I mean. So there is no reason to change anything when you are in harmony or balance. And the fact that Fred Brooks pointed out very explicitly, and I believe the Clegg book on strategy also referenced somebody who was onto this, that it's actually a major idea that the reason we do strategic planning is because we fear we will not be in harmony in the future. So we need to figure out how to get in harmony in the future, set objectives, visions, or requirements for getting there, then do technical planning, architecture, design, engineering, and implement the ideas and measure the hypothetical strategies and see if they work. And we need to do this cyclically, not every 5 years, but about every day or week would be a good idea. Think of yesterday and the Chinese AI system. And why do we need to look at the competitive market every day?
How about balance then, if this was harmony?
Well, again, balance means they're almost synonyms, but we don't have to make them synonyms. Again, we need to write down formal definitions of them. But harmony means there's no fighting, and balance means that there are no conflicts, so there's no reason to fight. That's why I'm just off the cuff defining them. I should be happily write them down.
Well, isn't some of the balance actually made almost like from disagreement? You have some level of optimality where one cannot win without putting another one significantly worse off. So the balance is like, let's not fight anymore for the moment, but the minute I get the upper hand,
right,
don't turn your back.
You're alluding to zero-sum thinking. Okay, that's one possibility. The other possibility is not about zero sums. It's just like one stakeholder isn't getting good enough quality or the costs are too high, and that's an imbalance between you, the supplier of the product or service, and them. I'm trying to be very short in my answers. I could hold a half an hour lecture on it too, but I won't. But I do offer you my book called Guide, which is 200 pages or something like that on the whole ideas of balance and harmony. Read the book. Read the book, and then we'll have a talk about balance and harmony. Have you read my book guide yet, Morten?
Not yet. Yeah, I'm catching up. It's
Yeah, I know. Okay.
you have
So
this
I think
amazing
it's fair.
ability to write much faster than I can read.
Yep. So, in other words, a good discussion would be based on my most thorough explanation of my ideas there, rather than you not having read them. Then I sort of have to read the book to you before we can have a discussion. So that applies to everybody here. You're welcome to read or scan my books in an hour and say, okay, I've looked at it and I have the following questions. That's fair, but don't force me to read the book to you. I've written it down.
Marcelo?
And I'm very proud of the guidebook, of the guidebook.
Yeah, I'm just going to parrot back a question by Jussie in the chat because it's floated around in my head. And actually, I think Tom, Nigel Thurlow, Ivar Jacobson, and a few others have had kind of sort of an adjacent conversation to this. So the question is, what do you think are the biggest cultural barriers of adopting this kind of approach to strategy when the culture has little engineering tradition, especially in the management circles?
Right. Now, one is tempted to say that they need to be trained in these methods when they are not. And of course, that's even interesting for some people listening in because that's a new job. After Agile, we got to do something, right? So, however, I'm a skeptic at retraining people who are not already engineers to do engineering. So now there are two options then. The radical option is replace them with people who do think like engineers. There are plenty of those. Now, that of course won't make you popular with your clients, saying get rid of all your top management and replace them with, people who think like Musk or somebody like that, or think systematically. So we have to be careful. But now, ultimately, I've concluded the following: you can't really retrain people to be very much better, a little bit. Number two, you cannot really replace your top management. You're going to get fired before they do, put it that way. Okay. And although Trump is having fun trying right now, my God. Anyway, what you can do, and this is what I believe in, and I'm showing the references. I have a little book called Startup. Right there. Startup. I hope. I may have missed that startup book there. But I have a book called Startup. Email me if you want it. I think I may have failed to put it in here. I'll be reminded to do that. But and I wrote it this year, and I wrote it for startups. Now, if you take a look at people who've done magnificent strategic engineering, like Tesla and SpaceX, tain't long ago they were startups, and everybody thought they were crazy, and they had a crazy leader. He's still crazy, okay? But he is essentially an engineer, and he talks about engineering all the time. And he said, everybody in my company is an engineer. I don't want any MBAs who can't do engineering and won't do engineering. I don't want them. I won't hire them. Okay, they're useless. They don't want managers of that kind. And he is more successful in business than the other guys. Okay, so long story short, I believe that if we get these ideas to startups, they will grow this culture. The ones who succeed and survive will grow this culture. And that is our only real hope. The other guys, the Volkswagens, BMWs, Fords, and General Motors, they will die like dinosaurs. And NASA and Boeing compared to SpaceX, and on and on and on. That's my conclusion. Our only hope is young startups, energetic young startups who, there were two kinds of startups, those who use these methods. And if you look at Coutts, the reference, let's see, I hope I've got at least that. Yeah, Coutts there. Nicholas Coutts has used these methods on over 200 European startups and has measured that they're twice as successful as all the other European startups. Okay? And I've worked on him with several of the startups and taught these methods. The quantification of goals and the impact estimation tables help the startups focus on the essential values without getting distracted by strategy ideas and cool technology. Okay? Read his paper and allow me to send you the startup book on email request. I'm sorry, it doesn't seem to be in here. Did I answer somebody's question?
There is one question more from Aaron. I don't know, Aaron, if you want to ask yourself.
Yep, I'm here. No, thanks, Tom.
Hi.
Great presentation, like always. I'm curious. How do you see your methods meshing with Kaizen or Hoshin planning models? I've worked in that world for really on and off for the last 25 years, and so
yeah,
I've obviously come from a more engineering background because it's it's hard to work in that world without being that way. But I will say this. I've seen how those methods can develop people into what I would call engineering managers over time, not quickly, not in 6 months or 3 months, but definitely over years, and assuming people want to do that. So I'm just wondering what your perspective is, if you have any on that.
Right. Now, Hoshin, you must have worked at Hewlett Packard, I'm guessing wildly.
No, Honeywell. So I worked at Honeywell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I did. I know that I did a lot of work for Hewlett Packard, and they were doing a lot of Hoshin. Now,
Sure.
Hoshin's fine. Remember my diagram with all the different levels?
Yeah.
That is essentially my variation of Hoshin planning. You
Yeah.
probably recognize that. Okay. So, long story short, I'm not ignoring things like that. I am explicitly doing them. And I believe I am enabling them to be better and clearer through adding more engineering to the process. By the way, there is the PPP book, Powerful Ploys for Problems Using Planguage, is a set of 12 to 14 case studies of major industries like Intel, Hewlett Packard, Boeing, Ericsson, who used my methods for many years. And in particular, then Hewlett Packard, who's doing a lot of Hoshin, has been using my methods in parallel with that, using it to do Hoshin planning and things like that. So that's very well documented, not only by the business itself in publications in Hewlett Packard Journal, but by researchers at MIT and people like that doing master's thesis looking at the effect of my methods at Hewlett Packard. That's sort of an answer.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You mentioned I answered almost. I took off on Hoshin, and there were some other things you mentioned, and if you want to mention them, maybe I can comment more in detail on them.
Yeah, is that okay, Morten, or not? If I ask that other piece?
Oh, absolutely. So this is okay. Don't hold yourself back.
Well, no, I just don't want to be taking up other people's time either. Yeah, no. So just different approaches in Kaizen, like Gemba walks and catchball, and there's just
okay,
dozens,
so
hundreds of these techniques that are very hyper tactical that are built around an engineering mindset to look for variation, deviation, defect, quality, waste, etc. Just that mindset. How do you see your methods meshing? Just versus introducing a completely new method that forces a population to have to relearn, which I found to be very challenging in principle.
Right. Okay. Now, if I take Kaizen, we're pronouncing it differently, but probably neither correctly. We're not Japanese, but I know
Exactly.
about Kaizen in depth. Okay. And now Evo, here is the book on Evo, the Evo book. And very recent, I mean, last year, and it's very deep. Now, that is my Kaizen book to identify it. And it is very, very deep about these cycles and how you do them and how you learn from them and how you learn from reality quickly and adjust. So, long story short, read the or scan the Evo book and this is the same as the Evo cycle I did present. Okay, but this is a very deep book. The strategy ring book has much of the same stuff if you want to read that instead. Okay, but what it is, my Evo cycle is a way of doing cycles, Kaizen, doing incremental improvement, and Gemba and Wakiba. It's a way of getting information early from reality and adjusting. So the answer is I have integrated these ideas, but I think I've done it better. It's not as simple, but I think it's more effective. Okay, because we're doing it with numbers, not words. This the simple. We're doing it with engineering, not MBA stuff.
Great. No, thank you. Thank you.
And pleasure to talk to you anytime, Aaron. Just tell me when, start with an email and maybe end with a little 1-hour chat. I'm happy to talk to you.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you, Martin, for putting this together, of course.
You're welcome. We are not quite done yet. Tom, I had a question for you. We have had a few presentations in this series, and I know you have been in a large number of them. And some of those stand out as being a bit more semantic than others to some of your points. But do you have any observations from the past series in a way and how they relate to your methods? I'm probably thinking in particular a person like, and I'm not asking evaluation of their work. I'm not more asking connection points. So a person like Peter Combo, who's looking at the strategy alternative matrix as a way of evaluating things. Patrick Hoverstad had a very semantical approach based on system thinking, etc. Any connection points worth exploring?
Yeah. I had heard Patrick Hoverstad earlier, and I actually made a little note. Oh, he's quite academic, and I sort of blew him off. Then I heard him at your meeting, and then I actually got a hold of his patterns book, and I actually read it. Okay. And I have a lot of respect for Patrick's work. I mean, number one, he is practical. Number two, he's trying to store knowledge systematically in his patterns. By the way, the Clegg book on strategy does also try to have a lot of case studies. So in that sense, it's also storing things. He just doesn't call them patterns. Okay. So it clearly knowledge about different strategies. The knowledge means knowledge about their qualities and performance and costs and constraints, my attributes. Okay. It is very important to store this knowledge systematically. Patrick tries. Kudos. Okay. And Clegg tries. And everybody who does a lot of case studies saying how they succeeded, how they failed, and what the problems were, is trying to store that knowledge. I fear that, but even as good as Patrick's initial work is, I think it could be better, this knowledge storage. Okay. By the way, just to almost tease you a little bit, I have a book on knowledge called Ken. There it is. There's the link. So, and I believe that knowledge needs to be stored in terms like engineers do it, like scientists do it, in terms of multidimensional attributes. And they're trying. Patrick is trying with his patterns, okay? But he's not there yet. Put it this way, we should be able to store it so that an AI system can pick out the right strategy based on its quality and cost attributes. In 1985, Lech Koernig, should be in here somewhere, it built on an Apple II in Pascal a program for doing automatic design based on attributes you wanted. It will still operate on a Mac today. What we found then was we could write the algorithm for picking strategies, but we didn't have the data, the database, the storage of knowledge of what these attributes actually gave in practice. Okay, take something simple like you mentioned Hoshin, for example, Aaron. Can you show me where there was systematically researched the use of Hoshin in different companies, and we have the range of attributes for flexibility, security, performance improvement, costs in numbers, so that a stupid AI system can pick out Hoshin and say, that's your strategy. We're not there yet. The idea of storing knowledge that way is an old scientific engineering idea. But we in IT and management have totally failed to even discuss it. I'm starting the discussion now. We need the academics, that's their job, need to research it and store it so we can use it without reading a scientific paper or 70,000 papers on strategy, which happen to exist. Then AI can help us strategic planning.
No, exactly. I don't know how much you have been following the things that's been introduced by Dave Snowden and Ivor Jacobson, the Hexi
thing. Right. Okay. So yes, Dave and Snowden and
Ivor Jacobson. Yeah.
Yeah, I know them very well personally, as I think you know, and I follow and track them as well as I can. And we are actually cooperatively, for example, a friend of ours called John Coleman is building a system of top management training based on the ideas of Gilb, Martin, Robert L. Martin, Snowden. Okay. So in a sense, we are a set of ideas for top management training via the efforts of John Coleman at the moment. But we're together. And we talk all the time in the background.
We are approaching the full hour. Tom, anything you like to ask from us? I know we are running a little bit short of time, but any questions from you to us?
So my email is tom@gilb.com. And you are very welcome to email me with questions, requests, discussion, attacks, arguments, better methods. Love to hear from you. I'm retired. I don't cost anything. I'm not looking for your money. I'd love to learn from you as I do from Morten and Patrick and others. So take advantage of it. It'll be my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining. So let's wrap up and hope to see all of you soon again for another episode in this Odyssey into strategy that we have set up for ourselves. Thank you.
I'll be there.
Yeah. Thank
heckling
you, Tom.
the lecturers.
See you soon.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
JF.